She was drowning long before anyone noticed, the waves swallowing her cries as the evening sun melted into the horizon, turning the sea into a shimmering sheet of gold that hid the danger beneath. And the guests aboard the luxury yacht were too busy laughing, clinking glasses, and capturing sunset selfies to realize that a young woman had slipped from the edge of the deck after being shoved during a careless argument, her fingers scraping uselessly against polished wood before she vanished into the cold water. Her heart racing as panic flooded her lungs faster than the sea. She tried to scream but swallowed salt instead, her arms flailing, dress growing heavy like chains dragging her down, and for a moment she thought this was how it ended, quietly, invisibly, without anyone ever knowing her name. But then a shadow moved above, tall and still, watching from the upper deck, a man whose presence alone made conversations pause and staff walk straighter, the Korean Mafia CEO who had boarded the yacht only an hour earlier, his dark suit now loosened, eyes sharper than the ocean wind. He had been silent all evening, uninterested in shallow smiles or business flattery. Yet when he noticed the faint ripple where she disappeared, something inside him snapped before logic could intervene, and without a word he shrugged off his jacket, ignored the shocked gasps, and dove cleanly into the water, slicing through waves with practiced precision, his mind calm but heart unexpectedly fierce. He reached her just as her movement slowed, her eyes half closed, and when his arm wrapped around her waist, she clung instinctively. Fingers gripping his shirt like a lifeline, he pulled her up, breaking the surface as she coughed violently. Her hair plastered across her face, and he held her steady while signaling the crew. But even before they reached the ladder, he noticed how fragile she felt in his arms, how her breathing trembled, and how she looked at him with confused, terrified gratitude, as if she couldn't believe someone had come back for her. They helped her onto the deck where chaos erupted, towels, questions, accusations, but he ignored all of it, kneeling beside her as she shivered, his hand steadying her shoulder, his usually cold voice softer than anyone had ever heard, asking if she could breathe, if she was hurt, and she nodded weakly, whispering a thank you that barely carried over the wind. Yet somehow it struck him deeper than any declaration he had ever heard. And while others argued about who pushed her, he wrapped his coat around her without hesitation. The expensive fabric soaked and clinging, but he didn't care, because for the first time in years, the world around him felt quieter, narrowed to the girl with trembling hands gripping his sleeve. Giant, her eyes searching his face as if memorizing him, and he realized he hadn't even asked her name. But strangely, he didn't need it yet, not when the connection sparked so unexpectedly. The yacht continued drifting, lights turning on as night fell, and she sat beside him wrapped in warmth, still shaken but alive, while he watched the sea with a protective silence, unaware that this impulsive dive had just altered both their destinies. Because she wasn't supposed to be there that night, she was only a temporary assistant, invited last minute, and he was supposed to leave after a brief meeting, yet fate had dragged them into the same moment. And as she finally spoke again, voice steadier, telling him her name, he repeated it quietly, as if testing how it felt, and something inside him settled in a way it never had before. The powerful CEO who commanded fear now sitting soaked beside a stranger, feeling an unfamiliar pull that had nothing to do with power or control, only the simple, dangerous warmth of wanting to protect her. And when she tried to stand, her legs weak, he instinctively supported her, their closeness sending a quiet electricity through the space between them, unnoticed by. The following days moved quickly for him, but slowly for her. He returned to towering glass offices, where executives waited anxiously for his decisions. Yet even during high-stakes meetings, his mind drifted unexpectedly, replaying the image of her standing in the morning sunlight, her quiet smile interrupting his usual cold focus. His assistant noticed the subtle change, the way he paused before signing documents, the rare moments he stared out the window instead of responding instantly, while she, back in her small apartment, found herself checking her phone more often than she wanted to admit, telling herself it didn't matter, that someone like him probably had forgotten already. Yet every time it buzzed, her heart jumped. The city outside moved with ordinary noise, but she felt suspended between two worlds. One familiar and modest, the other powerful and distant. On the third evening, just as she convinced herself he wouldn't call, her phone lit up with an unknown number. She hesitated before answering, And when she heard his calm voice, her breath caught. He asked if she had eaten. The simple question oddly intimate. She said she had, though she hadn't, and he asked if she would join him for dinner. She agreed before overthinking, and an hour later a black car waited outside her building again. The driver greeting her respectfully. She wore a simple dress. Worried it wasn't enough, but when she entered the restaurant's private room and saw him stand as she arrived, his gaze softened in approval, silently telling her she looked perfect. They sat across from each other, the table lit by warm candlelight, conversation flowing easier than before. She spoke about her job struggles. He listened with genuine interest, occasionally sharing small details about his childhood in Korea, carefully omitting the darker parts of his life. Yet she sensed there was more beneath his composed surface. At one point, she laughed at something trivial, and he realized he was smiling openly, something his staff rarely saw. Time slipped away unnoticed again, and when she mentioned she should leave, he walked her out, the night air cool, the city lights reflecting in her eyes. They paused beside the car, neither moving. Immediately, he stepped closer, gently brushing a strand of hair from her face, the touch hesitant yet deliberate. She didn't step back, her heart pounding, and in that quiet moment he realized he was already too deep. Not just intrigued, but genuinely drawn. He didn't kiss her. Instead, he simply rested his hand lightly over hers, promising he would see her again soon. She nodded, unable to hide her happiness, and as the car carried her away, he remained standing on the sidewalk longer than necessary, his security team watching silently, understanding that something had changed in their usually untouchable boss. Meanwhile, she leaned against the seat, smiling to herself, the memory of his touch replaying, unaware that across the street someone else had been watching, a rival who recognized the CEO and now the woman beside him. And as the night deepened, a quiet storm began forming, one that would soon test whether the connection between them was strong enough to survive the dangerous world he came from. Yet for now, both of them simply held on to the warmth of the evening, falling further step by step into a love that neither had planned but neither wanted to escape. The next morning arrived with an unusual sense of anticipation. She woke earlier than usual, her mind still replaying the dinner, the way he had looked at her as if she were the only person in the room, and she caught herself smiling while making coffee, something she hadn't done in a long time. While across the city, he sat in a boardroom filled with executives discussing expansion plans. Yet his attention drifted again, his fingers tapping lightly against the table as he considered ending the meeting early, which shocked everyone present. He finally stood, giving brief